Yo, yo, yo. Welcome back, guys, to the charts, man. How we doing? How we doing? All right, guys, a lot to cover here on this video, but first, smash the like and subscribe if you want to see me go live, baby. All right. Okay, so AMC is trading sideways. It has been trading sideways here for a little bit. So we're going to talk about the cycle. We're going to talk about the market phases. And most importantly, we're going to talk about this liquidity because I got some findings for you guys. All right, so let's go ahead and start with that. Let's get straight to it, man. Okay, so the memes, AMC and the memes. I made a video about this a few videos ago. It talks about this correlation a little bit, but I want to get a little bit sort of deeper in that correlation with some of the events that have just happened, some of the new events that just happened. So let's bring on this 4 chart here and line everything up. So we got AMC. Okay, August 2024, February right there, and 2024. Cool. We got AMC, we got Nvidia, we got Mara in 2020, and Apple in 2020. So what's the correlation here? Because we need correlation, right? We need some kind of correlation, not just pattern structure, but correlation in other sectors in the market, how they're used for liquidity for these big guys, right? Nvidia and Apple. What makes this correlation here a good correlation to track is the split, the most recent split that took place. And also how Nvidia here is behaving similarly to Apple in 2020. So an Apple split back in 2020, all right, we had a very similar chart here, right, that Nvidia is displaying. It was ascending for quite some time, and this was its first breather it took, right? It traded sideways for quite some time after this, but where did all this liquidity go in after the split? Because shortly after the split, it took a dump, right? It took a dump for quite some time. And if you look at Nvidia now, we take a look at Nvidia now, we have the same thing. We have a split followed by a very hefty dump. Like this hefty dump, guys, extremely similar to Apple. We've been tracking this for a little while now. Now, how can we sort of correlate the two together, right? Because we have Nvidia here with a strong correlation, but on top of that, we have crypto and the Mara space, Mara and the crypto space, pumping liquidity prior to the split and then resting for about 120 days, which is the cycle length that we track, 62 days, so 2 cycles. All right, we have all this liquidity dumping right before Apple splits, and then shortly right after that, everything just kind of trades sideways together. These are lined up, guys, 1 to 1. Okay, so these happen at the same time, 2020, 2020, 2024, 2024. All right, so now in this, we call it the volatility sectors, right? Because there's so many. It's not just the memes. It's not just crypto. You know, we have the cannabis sector. We also have what we call the tech disruptor sector. You're going to have some stocks in there like Carvana. These are mid-cap stocks. They still experience a lot of volatility or have in the past year. So they're valid to track. We have Upstart, Roku, AI. Those guys are typically in that sector. And these, remember, they all kind of take turns inside the macro cycle of the market, the macro market cycle. Because when stocks are doing stuff like this, typically you see markets trading at an all-time high or in that range. And we know that to be true because that's what the markets are doing right now, right? It's not just Nvidia splitting. We have SPY and a bunch of other big blue chip stocks trading in their at their highest levels. But we know that at the time here, Mara was trading at the lowest levels that it had ever experienced, similar to AMC's, similar to GameStop in a way. Remember that these are volatility sectors. Split them up here. It's not just the stock that we're tracking. But what is this telling us, right? This is telling us that this liquidity is being used in some form of way. And obviously, you cannot compare the market cap of these cryptocurrencies this is why the option game is such a big deal, guys, because there's so much more liquidity in that with these sectors than there is on the actual stock, right? The actual stock, you can't really compare the liquidity that's being traded by just buying the stock. It has a lot to do with derivatives, options. And where's that going, right? We know that with Roaring Kitty talking about options, right? He almost had a position he could have closed at all like the $1 billion market cap range, right? So that just tells you like how much power and how much liquidity is in that space, the derivative space. So with this correlation here, we need to sort of, we need to talk about the timing here, because stocks in the market, when you find these correlations, stocks in the market typically do behave a very similar way. We take this approach, guys, with many stocks in the market, and some stocks speed the algorithm up. We have dates, option expiration dates that we track, and typically it has to do with the way the cycle runs. But a lot of the times when you have more correlation, and this is why this video is important here, the probability becomes even higher of something taking place as we've seen before. So Mara in this space right now, Mara is trading in a reaccumulation space. That means that it already exited the first bump, right? We know that this is essentially could turn into macro accumulation, which means it would trade sideways and then start climbing back up sometime in August, September time, or reaccumulation, meaning it could start pumping very soon. So both of those are still on the table. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here on AMC, but before I do that, take a look at the timing here, right? We know that Mara, it took about 120 days for it to pump, trade sideways, and then keep pumping after that, right? About 120 days, so keep that in mind here for this. All right, we come back to AMC, and now we're going to bring the cycle. Okay, so for those that are new to the channel, the cycle, we've been tracking this since November 2021. All right, it's pretty much what this channel is about. It's talking about the AMC cycle, how there's correlation with this small window that we track in the cycle, and it's this small window right here. So we call it a 13-day window, the POI window. And this right here is very important to track because it normally tells us, well, where we are in terms of the AMC cycle. Because all cycles, in the market, individual to their sector, right? Because we know that GameStop also follows a very similar version of this. But yes, this is something that we track because it has a high correlation of playing out. And right now, it's telling us that we are inside the cycle. We are inside this POI. However, many POIs, and this is something that people need to understand, this is not guaranteed upside or guaranteed downside. It's just telling us that previously on AMC, we have experienced volatility inside that window, right? That's the correlation here. It's not telling us that we're going to go up, because a lot of these, and actually most of these, end up trading sideways. They're just flat. Okay, a lot of them are inverse. We've seen that take place over here. The price falls back down inside that window, but many, many, many are just sideways trading. And one way to kind of bring this, narrow down a little bit of what's going to happen, what's going to end up happening here, sort of understand the correlation a little bit, is how quickly these volatility events take place. We know that this one, we've already seen like 3 inside have been pretty hefty, and this is where you see volatility go up, premiums go up in options. So that's very important to track here, because this is why the 120-day cycle is very important, okay? AMC pumps here, 120 days actually runs 2 cycles. That means that if we did track the Mara sequence or the crypto sequence back in 2020, when that liquidity was used for Apple, that pretty much means that AMC would trade sideways for this cycle, and that means it can go up to 6, can go up to 8, can come back down to 4, do something like this. Pretty much what it's saying is that if it tracks that cycle, it would remain trading sideways in some form of way from the start, about 120 days to the next cycle here in September. So August to September time. All right, now again, algorithms have sped things up very quickly, and there's multiple ways this can play out. Okay, I've said on the previous videos, this can play out in the form of a spring. We are inside the POI, so what this means is that if the price does end up going up, we have a spring set up, and this ends up going up, well, that makes sense because we're inside the POI, right? And the algorithm might be speeding things up to sort of prepare for any sort of event in the markets moving, forward here in the short term. Okay, so many patterns are calling for this on both directions, but this is just a way to sort of narrow it down. This is why being patient with these plays is key. Is tracking them is one thing, but understanding the levels is also another. Is making sure that we're sustaining some of these levels, that they're still tracking some of the reference patterns that we're tracking, right? Because at the end of the day, guys, it all comes down to respecting levels, macro support levels. When you see inverse POIs take place, like major ones, you have to look at technicals at the end of the day. If you saw that there's a major cross at a trend line and it stays below that trend line for quite some time, well, the chances are you're going to be either trading sideways in a range for a while, or the price is going to keep descending, and then everything turns into macro distribution again. But right now, AMC is just trading sideways, man. It's just choppy trading sideways, no clear direction. And this time in the markets, guys, this is the theta channel, okay? This right here is market maker's best friend, okay? Or we'll call it market maker's second best friend after the pump, right? Because collect premiums, and then after they collect premiums at a high price, now everything expires pretty much worthless, and then people keep buying options here. They just keep buying, and then they just keep expiring until they pump it again. And this is why it's crucial. It's crucial to wait for major breaks, major levels that we're tracking, and go from there, right? That's kind of the outlook I have here, man, for the next few weeks, even months on AMC. Going to be updating it here. Keep going with the updates and kind of go from there. But I'll show you guys real quick the AMC cycle that we had, where we tracked AMC twice to a T perfectly using the AMC cycle here. And it was the dump to the pump right here, which is liquidity, and then a pump. That's hedging right there, 120 days. And then this one right here, same thing. You have a dump, 120 days later, it starts pumping again. And then one more, where this came from, this theory came from the pump in January. And how long did that take? Pump, traded sideways, 120 days later, boom, starts climbing back up. So same thing, guys. You go back to, this is why we have the cycle in place. You go back to the same cycle, except, well, now things are happening a little bit differently, but you go back to this whole thing, and it's the same thing, man. 120 days later gives you that August to September timeline here, if it does follow the 120-day cycle, which we already have a little bit of correlation with the crypto sector kind of going first in the 2020 time, right? I mean, 4 years later, you got the debates coming back. I mean, everything just kind of lines up in some form of way, and you get these major blue chips kind of doing their thing, splitting. I mean, all this correlation is big. It's huge. There's a couple of other things I didn't cover on this video, but we've been tracking this on the Discord, guys, and 2 other plays already played out to a T. I'll show you guys real quick. All right, so we got DJT. We use this correlation here on the Discord, specifically with what happened here with the correlation on Apple and NVIDIA. The other play was actually NVIDIA. I have that here on top. And this was used using the AMC cycle here, and pretty much what's happening here in the meme sectors and the crypto sectors. So all this stuff, guys, is something that is very important to use, in my opinion, this approach in the markets. Because, dude, like, you'd be surprised how these, how these market makers and algorithms are just rinsing and repeating these patterns, man. It's crazy stuff. If you guys want to check all that stuff out, man, make sure you guys click the link below. A few other things. We got some indicators, and we also have some Discord plays, obviously. Yeah, guys, ko-fi.com/DWE charts, man. Check it out. And Platzi, man, keep saying this, but Platzi is the pattern scanner. Very big on finding these, these plays and these pattern breakouts, formations. So check it out. And guys, I'll see you on the next video. All right, bye-bye.